Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast, your Fulham podcast from Down Under. And we are back again, this time in the new year. Happy New Year, everyone. And what a way to kick off the new year with a 2-1 victory over Arsenal. Here to talk through the wonderful result we have. Sammy, how are we going, Sammy? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I'm going really good. I lost my phone on New Year's. So I started the year off in a panic, but what that also meant was I got no spoilers when I got to rewatch the game. And whee, I had a very, very nice morning after with no spoilers. It was peak anxiety. It was great. Started the year off on a high. Happy to be here.
Good stuff, Sammy. Yeah, well done for somehow managing to lose your phone and get it back as well within 24 hours. That's a very good effort. And also, we've got Dad. How are we going, Dad? Happy New Year.
Very good. Happy New Year to you all and to everyone. Yep, great way to start the new year. Not for you, Sam, um, but yeah, belief lives on, and Uber actually works, and Uber security works, and it's all good.
I don't know about that, but that's a different podcast. Anyway.
Well, I mean, let's get straight into it. This was kind of as we've all said, a great way to start the new year, but maybe a very unexpected one, especially off the back of the recent results. When you look at the fact that we lost so disappointingly against a poor Burnley side, and admittedly a Bournemouth side who are on the rise at the moment and in very good form, but man for man, this Fulham team is far better than that Bournemouth side. So to capitulate so terribly, and also just to not score goals in that period as well, was kind of depressing. And then you go into a game against an Arsenal team who are top at Christmas. They're chasing wins and points to maintain their title challenge. And Sammy, I'll throw to you first, but this Arsenal team, they just capitulated, and it's completely different to the time we saw them play against us at the Cottage last year, where they were 3-0 up after 20 odd minutes and looked like they were going to put 10 past us that day.
Yeah, look, I mean, they definitely haven't gotten any worse. I think it's like a really annoying football manager season at the moment. I mean, Jack, I feel that you'd be able to like fully understand this. Sorry, Dad, I'm going to put you on the back burner a little bit, but I feel like we are just a couple of key decisions away from a perfect squad at all times. And just again, I said it last week, I'll say it this week. I don't think Jimenez is the be all and end all. We just need cohesion around the squad, because when we have cohesion, we're a team that can ball at the moment, like really, really ball. Because this Arsenal team, no slouch. Like, they gave us their full 11. They gave us a proper side. And we really, really took it to him. It was so awesome to see, but it's equally frustrating because, again, it's just what I just want signings now, because there's no reason why we can't be doing this every week. So I'm so stoked. Like, don't get me wrong, this is such an awesome achievement, and it was so well done and so well worked against a really, really competitive Arsenal. But for me, I'm just kind of like, we need sufficient depth so we can keep this going, because this could be such an amazing squad, but we're just so flimsy, aren't we? We're so like easily derailed. It just takes like one or two players out, but outside of that, man, it's a good team.
And for those of you who've just joined from outer space and have never heard of Fulham, all you've done is actually just provided like a wiki page of what it's like to be a Fulham supporter.
Look, but as I said before, people come here for the erraticness and Jack trying to rein it in. That is why people are tuning.
No. I didn't. I wasn't describing your erratic behavior. I was describing what it's like to be a Fulham supporter. It's just all over the place. I mean, 2 days out, I had no knowledge of whether Willian was going to play. We knew Raul was obviously had done his time after his 3-match suspension, but I'm thinking, yeah, well, I like Willian's input, but his form hasn't been great, and I'm thinking, even with those two in our so-called pretty much full squad, this is an incredibly difficult fixture. The only thing we've got going for us is it's at home, and we know where the toilets are, and you know, and then Saka puts one in the back of the net 5 minutes in, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness me, what is going to happen here?
I had the same thought. I was like, I've been here before. I know this.
But what an outstanding display. And again, we've said it a million times, this Fulham team, given its best 11, he really gets up for big games. But it's fair to say that we've given a really good showing of ourselves, and certainly haven't embarrassed ourselves to so many top 4, 5, 6 sides, but we just don't get the points. And this it seems like the first time we've actually done the business, which is so great to see.
But like just the way because I said it. I'm not sure if I said it on the last pod or the pod before, but I just felt that like because we weren't able to score goals, we weren't able to build momentum, and man, we just built so much momentum off of like Jimenez's goal, and that's the mark of a really, really good team. Like there's so much positivity, but at the same time, there's also so much frustration because it's like, why can't we do this all the time?
Sam, you have to be the most pessimistic fan at the moment after an amazing 2-1 win.
That is what football is.
Why can't we do this all the time?
That is what football is. Just loving and loathing and just like steaming.
But if you want us to do this all the time, go support Man City, because that the joy of loving football is accepting, I guess, that Fulham aren't going to get these results week in, week out, and that's what makes this result even more special, is the fact that it doesn't happen. It happens once in a blue moon. I mean, we haven't beaten Arsenal, I think it was 12 years. I think it was, from memory, the time Breda Hangeland scored from a corner, tapped the ball in. I think we won 1-0 that day. And, it's those moments that make this so special. And I think it would... we want to build the best possible squad, but I don't really want to support a team that wins every single week. It's fun for a little bit in the Championship when you're smashing in goals every week, but I quite enjoy being the underdog most of the time, and coming into games and getting performances like this where you get this amazing win, and it's euphoric rather than constantly expecting to win and actually being disappointed when you don't win.
I totally agree with you. I do 100% agree with you. But at the same time, my brain also goes, with just a couple more signings, it could be a Leicester again. And that's where my brain goes immediately.
I mean, maybe not Leicester, but we're a couple of signings away from being that, going on that European run again and having those kind of adventures and making those memories again, which stick so hard in everyone's memory from almost 15 years ago now, since that Europa League run. And they're the memories that people want. And I think if you're a Man City fan, it's actually the other side of it is, oh shit, we've missed out on Europe this year, or we've missed out on the Champions League, and never mind, we'll have to play in the Europa League and just win that instead. Whereas with us, you get into Europe and you're like, this is amazing. This is a new adventure and a new feeling. And you build on that. And look, I agree with you. We're a couple of signings away from being this really good upper mid-table team, and the kind of team that Villa are at the moment, the kind of team that we've seen Brighton be over the last couple of years. And I think we've talked about it before, the fact that this Fulham team always struggles to get results against the top, call it 8 sides. And I honestly, like, thinking in my head, we beat Chelsea last year, but Chelsea clearly aren't one of those sides anymore, at least at the moment. So I really can't think back to times. I know we got results against Liverpool previously, and when we were up, 4 years ago now, but it feels like that monkey on our back that we've really struggled to actually get results against these teams. And Dad, how important is it, do you think, for these kind of results where you actually beat a top six side and prove that you're not constantly going to be conceding that late equaliser? Do you think it's sort of got that monkey off our back, or do you think there's still a bit of work to be done to actually continually get these kind of results?
Well, how can you talk about Sam being on a downer, but I'm just going to put some realism into this. If you're so chaotic and all over the place in terms of results, there's no predictability about it. There's no consistency about it, and that's concerning. So I'm about taking the 3 points because we really need them, and I just like us to be predictable. You guys were banging on about how you'd hate to be a team that wins every week. I actually don't understand that. I'd love to be a team that wins a lot of the time. I don't mind losing to a better side, but it's just disappointing when you're just so predictably inconsistent. And I think the reason why you love supporting Fulham is there's just a good feeling about a club like Fulham. We don't have any terribly dirty money. We've had a bit of that in the past, not quite in the same league that other clubs are beneficiaries of. But I think it's just a bit hollow when someone just comes and pumps a truckload of money in. You buy a lot of players. Worse still, you're sort of shit, even though you've got an amazing squad of players, but you cannot pull the egos together. And then you go through a period of just bullying your way through till you get there. I would hate that. Honestly, I would hate that. And I distinctly remember speaking to Jack at the what's the name? I can't remember the name of the Newcastle podcast in Australia, and his response was kind of interesting in that, feel a bit awkward about how we've arrived at great wealth now, but you're gonna take it because you're gonna have better results. It's better than being continually relegated. But yeah, but Jack, to your question, Richard, we should always answer your questions. To your question, I don't think I remain unconvinced that we've actually turned a corner. I'm happy for the points.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say we're going to lose the FA Cup tie unless we put out the youth team. But the next few games, we could easily stumble against a mid-table team. That's kind of where we are at the moment. I don't like admitting to that, but it's true. And we're still fragile, really fragile.
There's so much positivity though. Like across the camp, on our best day, there's very few teams, in my opinion, that can actually touch us. Like I'm watching the highlights as we speak, and just to see how strong we are, how composed we actually are in the Arsenal game, it's so promising. So there's so much here to be optimistic about, and for like us to grow upon. I just really want to see that growth. I just really want to see it, and I hope that it continues.
Well, let's get into the game itself and fill ourselves with positivity now, and rather than looking at what could be, let's look at what was. First goal, Arsenal. Look, I think it's actually a fortunate goal, and if you look across the entirety of the game, Bernd Leno didn't have much to do. Arsenal rarely put any shots on goal. He's forced into a save. He makes a good save. There's not a huge amount more he can do there. Unfortunately, the ball falls into the danger area. Dad and I discussed, is Saka offside? The check is rather quick for something that looks fairly close, but on second viewing, I think he actually just floats at the perfect time. The Fulham line seems to freeze effectively on the edge of the 6-yard box, and Saka, as a good striker or a good attacking player does, floats perfectly into the danger area and is there. And look, the ball hits his foot, lobs up, ends up in the back of the net. He doesn't know a huge amount about that, I'm going to say, and you can see it on his face because he doesn't overly celebrate afterwards. Guys, I don't personally think there's much more you can do there, but Do you think Fulham maybe should have attempted to close down Martinelli a little bit more? Do you think Leno could have potentially palmed the ball to safety? Is there anything more we could do to avoid a goal like that, especially an early one?
Well, think about what happened moments before that. A really good move, which ends up in Castagna trying to get the ball, square the ball, and he ends up sort of draped over the hoardings and out of the game, off the field. And
that is the side the attack comes down as well.
Yeah, and Arsenal, they do really, really well. They exploit that absolutely perfectly. What can you do? What can you do in that situation? Clearly, would have been better if Castagna hadn't been involved in the build-up play or even the last pass, and he was 20 yards back and could therefore track back and do a decent job of defending, because we're surely one man down. Everyone else has to move more in a more central position, and it leaves Martinelli with time. It's a good, it's a decent ball in. Whether or not it was that great a shot, it puts it into a really dangerous area, and you've got Saka lurking, and he does well. I like you say, it's so quick from the parry from Leno to his foot. It can't possibly have been deliberate.
That's actually a very astute bit of punditry there, Father. I was very impressed. I was with you the whole way. That was great.
Did you see it all?
I did see it all, but like I couldn't have put it as eloquently as you just did then. I'm having hot flushes here. I honestly, I mainly just saw it as Sako is in the right place at the right time, and he's just got pinpoint reactions. I think whenever you like score or you concede in the earlier stages, especially within like the first 5 minutes, it's really just lapses of concentration, or maybe just being a little bit too hyped and not necessarily as crisp in the it's I feel like with you're always going to potentially be very, very vulnerable in the last 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes when you're playing really, really top squads, because that's just what they do. They are always willing to just strike, and yeah, you have to be as aware as physically possible.
It's a brilliant counterattack. It's a brilliant counterattack, and it transitions so quickly. And no disrespect to Saka, that's what good strikers do: appear at that moment, and they're always there. And he, as Jack said before, he drifted in absolutely to perfection in his timing.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's a very good striker's finish, I'll call it. Look, he got into a good position, but I do agree that it's also, it comes off the back of Fulham early in the game attacking Arsenal, which is kind of what we want to see anyway. We don't want to be the team that goes and plays at home, especially against a big side, and sits back and tries to hold on from minute one all the way through. I think we were unfortunate to concede, because it is a tough thing to do to come from 1-0 down. I can't find the exact statistic now, but there was a stat doing the rounds where Arsenal had, at this point, gone 46 games, I think it was, in a row where when they went 1-0 up, they did not lose. And Fulham had been, I think, 28 games in a row where when going 1-0 down, they had lost every single one of those games, or hadn't won a game when they went 1-0 down for 28 games straight. So Fulham going 1-0 down after 5 minutes, it just felt like it was going to be one of those days where you just go, shit, okay, we've conceded early. We might, try and get back into the game, but Arsenal can control this. And they're a very good side at doing that as well. When they go 1-0 up, they pass the ball around, hold possession really well. When you got a bloke like Odegaard sitting in the midfield who can literally pull strings all day, Declan Rice as well, just sitting behind him, being able to mop up everything. Saka and Martinelli out wide, causing havoc. But it wasn't one of those days, and Fulham really didn't let it affect them too much. I mean, obviously, there's that little moment after the goal is conceded where it looks a little bit shaky, but it was consistently good tackling from the defenders, good positioning, continual positivity as well throughout the whole game, where Fulham just continued to push forward and almost ignore the scoreline and basically play as if it was still 0-0. And I think that's what led to the first goal. Sammy, you got something to say?
I was just off the back of that point before we discuss the goal. Like two players I want to call out, because obviously Japolini is amazing and TC is amazing, all that good stuff, yada yada yada. But Bassi and Bobby Decordova-Reid had such intense games, and I thought they were so excellent, especially in like the first half. Bassi was a monster, and he was so in control. And with each passing week, I just love him more and more and more. And he really, really did so well against Saka, just muscling him like 80% of the time. And bless Bobby Decordova-Reid. Bobby Decordova-Reid just got slammed the entire first half by Gabriel and I forget the other Arsenal defender. Saliba, yeah. He was just getting murdered by those two, and he got up every single time, and he was just putting in such a good shift. And I just wanted to call that out before we get on to the very, very good goal by Jimenez.
Well, you could have actually done even better there and perfectly segued it in, considering the goal actually started with Bassi's tackle on Saka and breaking up what actually looked like a pretty good attacking move. Dad, were you going to make a mention of Bassi there?
Well, just I was going to go back and say, I remember watching the game with you, saying it was the 15-minute mark of the first half, and thinking, wow, for 10 minutes after that goal, which could easily have been a gut punch and very deflating, we were good. We did not look for one moment like it had mentally affected us. We were composed. We were at them. We were pressing. We were doing all the right things. It was really impressive, actually. And I did think to myself, wow, this is really something. And the other thing, Bassi had a monster of a game. I thought he was absolutely terrific. He's always got the odd crap pass at him, but he is absolutely. He's fantastic. I love having him, and it's so exciting. He's so young, and I think he's going to get better and better and better. And he looks like he really loves playing at Fulham. He looks like he's really enjoying himself.
Well, he's had a really hard run from was it Celtic or he was at Rangers, wasn't he? And he was at Ajax as well. And I think he never really got the love, whereas now he's fully getting the love and appreciation.
And I think
he was huge.
Yeah, Jack.
I was going to say he was huge at Rangers. He they got to the Europa League final, which they lost on penalties. He was a key player there. I mean, this is he only just turned 24 on New Year's Eve when he was playing for Rangers. That was four years ago. He was only 20, played 65 games for them. The transfer to Ajax didn't work out. I think the issue being he went over there for 20 million. They expected a lot from him. He got a red card in his first game and just never bounced back, basically. Made 25 appearances over the season, still scored a goal, but I don't think he lived up to the hype. Obviously, he's still a talented player, considering he didn't have a great season and got sold for 21 million, having been bought for 20 million. It's not like he got slashed to an £8 million player off the back of one bad season. It just didn't work out for him at Ajax. And it's interesting. I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff on social media with Bassi and Iwobi together, because the reason Iwobi effectively is at Fulham is because of Calvin Bassi, who, a tough time at Ajax, comes to Fulham, instantly seems to feel at home, calling Iwobi, saying, mate, come here, this is a great place to play football. He's now got his international teammate with him, who he obviously gets on really, really well with. They call him Agent Bassi around the ground because he's constantly calling blokes and trying to get them to join Fulham. And well, I agree. I love the kid. He's 24 years old and looks like he could be a real talented centre-back for the next 5, 6, 7 years for us. And yeah, look, I mean, talking about this first goal, it literally comes off his back. I think we can put it down to the fact that he wins that ball off Saka with.
Yeah.
It looks a bit of a messy tackle at first, but when you see a replay of it, it's a really solid tackle where he gets around Saka, wins the ball, wins a little second ball with Saka as well, and from there, Palhinha picks up the ball, look, gets played out wide to Kenny, who puts in a superb cross to the back post, and Jimenez is there. Still has quite a lot to do. I'm not saying that's a tap in by any means. He's just outside the 6-yard box, but the keeper's getting across, the defender's making a challenge, getting across. It's a good finish. He puts it underneath David Raya, who's flapping around as per usual, and Fulham equalise. And Dad, I'll throw to you first. Off the back of that equaliser, did you feel like we were back in the game? I guess you mentioned it before. We did look like we were playing very well, and Arsenal didn't seem to be miles ahead of us in this game.
Well, not in my wildest dreams did I actually believe. I could have flirted with it, but I didn't really believe that we were going to equalise in the first half. I just, if I believed that, I would have gone out and sports bet and put 100 quid on it, but I never would. I think it was a really, really good reward for the way that we bounced back after that Saka goal. And I have to also say that, we've definitely called out Bassi for a really fantastic game, but I thought the whole back four were really, really good. Castagna was fantastic. Tosin probably wasn't his greatest standout game, but as Jack and I were talking about, and Jack said didn't actually have as much to do actually. There wasn't a lot of balls coming in the air where he normally dominates and stands out, and but he did his job. And then Robinson, I thought he had an incredible game, shutting Saka out completely. I mean, obviously Saka scores a goal, but I think Robinson was outstanding, and even Palhinha. What one could easily sort of think, well, we've seen Palhinha carry Fulham on his own shoulders in some games last season, but I thought his performance was very, 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 very good yesterday.
Excellent.
2 days ago, and in conjunction with the back four, they kept Arsenal very quiet, against pretty damn amazing midfielders and wingers and a very good striker.
We've said it a bit, and I said it last week. Just when Palhinha has less to do, he's incredible because he can just focus on key things and just do them expertly, and he just has time to just walk around, pick his passes, pick who he's pressuring, and there's so much promise. There's so much promise. Again, with Castagna, I love Castagna at the moment. Castagna he's fantastic. He kind of reminds me a bit like obviously he's significantly younger, but the older statesman Ream at his absolute best. He's not necessarily the fastest, he's not necessarily the strongest, but he just reads the game so well. And then as a result, he doesn't necessarily need to outrun Martinelli because he just pinpoints exactly where he's going to be, and he just marks him perfectly. And it's so promising.
I have to also say I was a bit critical of Tom Cairney over the last couple of games. I thought defensively just didn't seem to work that hard. I thought he worked very, very hard against Arsenal. He put in a big shift. Actually, we're always looking to Tom Cairney for his creativity and pulling the strings in the midfield, which is generally about starting attacking movement. But I thought he worked really, really well alongside Palhinha. And as you said, Sam, maybe just did enough. I mean, Harrison Reed is always great as this little pit bull, incredibly hard-working player. But maybe the dynamic between Cairney and Palhinha a couple of days ago was I don't know, something a little bit different and pretty exciting, actually.
Jack, I've actually got a question for you. Do you reckon Silver gave them an absolute hiding after the last couple of games and you just really drilled them into like in a completely new state of mind? Or do you reckon it's just a shift of the squad cohesion was just perfect the other day?
No, I don't think he would have given a bollocking. I don't think he needs to. Perfectly honest, like these guys are all professionals. You can shout at them in the moment after a game and stuff, and he might have done. But I think you get back to Motspur Park, um, game on Saturday, maybe on Monday or Tuesday. I don't think there's any need to drill anything extra into them. They know what they did wrong, and it's just about playing the way we play. And look, this is the way Fulham always play. It's just we don't always play well. But there was nothing like tactically that we did hugely different. We saw a lot of Willian and Robinson working in tandem together. We saw Kearney pulling the strings. We saw the defenders stepping up and playing the ball between each other. We saw Polinia making tackles. Iwobi sort of having this free running sort of role where he just floats around really nicely. And I think the team selection was pretty bang on. At the time, I thought I'm not 100% sure about starting Deckard over Reed, but I don't mind it when you've got Willian coming back into the team, and we saw Bobby sort of drop back and do a little bit of work defensively, and Castagna sort of drift in and have a back five when we really needed it. But look, I think it's just one of those things where sometimes it clicks and sometimes it doesn't, and it really didn't with the Burnley and Bournemouth games. And I don't think we needed to massively shake things up. I think we just needed to get back to basics more than anything. And I don't think bollocking professional footballers is actually the best way to get them the best out of them either. And I don't think it's Silver's way either. He much prefers to bollock a fourth official or a referee than the players, I think. Look, going in 1-1 at half time, like you both said, I wasn't really expecting to pull one back that quickly. Even though we were playing well, it felt like one of those games where you just continue to go and go and go and couldn't get that lucky break. But Dad, as I sort of said when we were watching it, and I think we both said, the ball just felt like it was falling our way fairly often. We were constantly getting to the second ball.
Ain't that always the way when you're playing well?
Well, for sure. I mean, I think luck goes your way a little bit, and it did seem like, occasionally when the ball's, pinballing around, it did seem to fall to our feet more so. And we saw that with the second goal where it's a good cross in. Polinia comfortably beats Declan Rice to the ball. He runs towards the goal, then steps back, and Declan Rice can't get close to him. Unfortunately, Polinia's header is straight into Declan Rice, hits Rice on the shoulder, then goes, I think it hits Tomiyasu, and it
does.
Pinballs around. But like I said, the ball was falling our way. It falls to Bobby Deckard over Reed, close range, toe pokes the ball into the roof of the net, 2-1 Fulham. And look, for me, I was not expecting that. Even though we were playing really well, everything seemed to be going our way. Wasn't really expecting this kind of result and to actually go 2-1 up. But geez, doesn't Bobby constantly score these goals? Remember, he scored that goal against Liverpool as well. He always seems to be in the right place at the right time when things are going our way.
It was perfect karma as well, because just before that goal, Saliba is just pushing him to the ground, bullying him. He's got like 50 centimeters on him. He's massive compared to Bobby. And just to see Bobby just pivot around him and just perfect karma, just slip it in so clean. The term Swiss Army knife has been thrown around a million times, but I just appreciate that man with every year. He's really an unsung hero in a lot of ways, in my opinion. He just comes up with the goods, and just when you've forgotten about him, he always comes back. You can always guarantee you probably about 7 key goals a season. And I've had my frustrations with Bobby because he never seems to like playing in whatever position he's supposed to be in. But he's so great. I love Bobby Deckard over Reed.
Yeah, I think to be fair to him, I think that, as you've already mentioned, Sam, that was a really gritty performance and really
Mm,
hardworking, and really took a few for the team yesterday. Worked incredibly hard. Why do I keep saying yesterday when it's 2 days ago? And I, I think there's a really great reward for him to get such a key goal. And well, I love the guy. Couldn't be happier for him, and I think it was well deserved. And just as Saka was in the right place at the right time, when you're hot, and things like that happen. And
mm.
we had a number of players in the box, and yeah, scrappy, and the ball's you know pinballing about. But unless you've got numbers in there, you can't capitalize. So absolutely fair play to us.
You talk a lot as well with like about players who have like speed or strength, but I mean vision and reactions and just footballing mentality. I feel that Bobby just has that in abundance. Like he just sees the game sometimes in a way which like just most players don't. And Willian's got a lot of that as well. It doesn't necessarily matter how like fast or slow he is. He just sees it in a really, really great way. I genuinely think Bobby De Cordova will probably be a good manager one day. Like he just seems to just find himself there, and I could see him totally translating that at a later point in his career. I love the man. He's fantastic.
Well, it'd be very interesting with the transfer window upon us. I don't think anything massive is or major is going to happen with Fulham players leaving in the January transfer window. But I think at the end of the season, Bobby's contract might be up.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe.
if not, then he's definitely only one season after that. But he's probably one of those players where you do have to consider: do we keep someone like that? Because you know, no offense to Bobby, we do love him, but he's not a superstar player,
No.
and he's probably one of those players that you're looking at as same as Harrison Reed, for example. These are guys who are solid players, but if you want to actually take that next step, you need to upgrade those two. In a similar fashion to Tim Ream, who had an amazing season last year, and we would never think about usurping Tim Ream, but now you've got someone like Calvin Bassey, and you go, "Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense."
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be looking at for blokes like Bobby and Harrison Reed over the next 12 months, 2 years, depending on how results go. So it definitely raises an interesting question about where his future lies, and if we're actually, you know, going to see Bobby over the next couple of years. But
Mm.
um, look, Fulham 2-1 up. This game was interesting because I don't know about you guys, and admittedly, when I watched the full game, because it happened on New Year's Eve, had a half an eye on it for the whole night, so I sort of knew what was happening when I watched the full game the next day with Dad, with a very bad hangover, which kicked in also at about halftime. But it really never felt like I didn't overly feel nervous in this second half. Arsenal just really seemed to struggle to create anything, and I think that's credit to our back four, and a huge credit to Anthony Robinson, who just pocketed Saka for the whole game. And we saw it when Liverpool came and visited us. Anthony Robinson, and you understand why teams like Liverpool and Man City are sniffing around Robinson at the moment, because he has this weird knack and ability to shut down super high level players. And Saka just didn't get a sniff. After that fifth minute, Saka just seemed to, basically disappear off the face of the earth. He had an attempt on goal, a volley that he really should have put away and put almost over the top of the stand. And then late in the game, João Palhinha absolutely cleaned him up in what has to be one of the
That's
best tackles I have
amazing.
ever seen.
That's
Um,
amazing.
but guys, a word on Robinson, because he created a lot going forward. He was great defensively. Do you think there's a big move for him in the future, or do you think he's someone that Fulham will try and tie down long term?
Oh.
I think, well, I guess it depends on the price that the market sets for Robinson. I mean, if people were only prepared to pay 30 million for him, I don't care what we bought him for. I wouldn't sell him for 30 million. because I think he's too valuable to Fulham. Could he be worth 80 million? Well, I suppose if Man City or Chelsea wanted him, then he is. But he's not the complete footballer, and I don't think I'm being unfair. I think he's remarkably talented, and he does a number of things really well. He's blisteringly quick. He's deceptively good for a guy who's predominantly one-footed. He's amazingly adept at getting round people with one, kind of one strong foot. Tom Kearney's a bit the same. The way Tom Kearney can literally turn in a tight circle with a ball on the end of his boot. When it was there was actually a moment in a game where Jack said, I can't remember who the Arsenal player was, but Jack said, "Who doesn't know which way Kearney's about to turn?"
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Geez, the Arsenal team really have not done their research if they don't realise Tom Kearney is going to turn in a circle on the instep of his left foot like he always does.
Do you know what? I actually think that's a pretty astute bit of observation. Sorry, yeah, no, Dad, you finish your point.
Yeah, and I think it often gets more difficult for Robinson when he's in a really tight corner, and when he has a lot of space and there are no other players around, it's just one-on-one. He's often very adept at running around players, and he's just a very, very, very good athlete. But in a tight situation, you do need confidence on both feet to get yourself out of trouble, and the best players can do it. So I guess what I'm saying is, is a Real Madrid going to be after him? I doubt it. It's just not that sort of complete footballer.
Maybe a Sevilla.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, he's there's apparent interest from Liverpool and Man City at the moment. I think he's been one of there's a lot of them, but he's been one of our best signings for a long time. Considering we picked him up from Wigan after they got relegated for £2 million. As I think it's Colm in our live chat saying, Steve, saying, his market value is £20 million at the moment. I'd say realistically that means your actual value and what you'll sell for, especially in January, would be 40 to 50 million pounds realistically.
Yeah, I reckon that's right.
Yeah. He's been a great pickup for us. The only thing I'd say is his end product isn't ideal, and if you look at the top tier left or right backs in the league, Alexander-Arnold, Kieran Trippier, Luke Shaw, these are guys who pick up 10, 15 assists a season.
Absolutely.
Anthony Robinson this season from 20 odd appearances has 3 assists, which is a very good season for Robinson.
I actually think,
which is why I just think he probably coming in, Jack, step up.
I actually think the balls coming in from Robinson have a bit more venom about them. If
I agree,
right.
They're 100% improved. But what I'm saying is he's still not at that level that would justify that big money move for me, because I don't think
agree.
The analysis teams of those big 6 sides, we would look at him going, yep, he adds a lot, but we actually need, because we're not defending that much as a big 6 team, we actually need someone who can give us that final product and create chances for us. And he doesn't really add that at the moment.
Yeah,
so
that's
what would your price be? What would your price be?
I think the price would probably be. I reckon the price would probably be around about 40 million, maybe 30 or 40.
No, your price. Your price. What would you accept for him?
I'd probably accept anything between 20 and 30, because honestly, if you okay, here's the point that I actually want to get to. I think he is really good, and I think he has done leaps and bounds for us over the years. I still don't necessarily think he is Silva's ultimate left back. I think the left back that Silva actually wants is kind of on the horizon. I mean, I don't know if he wants somebody equally as speedy. There's just my only issue with Robinson is there's just not as much consistency with him, because he can have an amazing game up against like a Chelsea opposition, he's really at his best when he overexerts. But then when he plays someone like Dan Burn or whatever, he just has like a shocker. And I feel like that can't be screaming, "Come get me" to the upper echelon teams. I mean, I could see him at an Inter
I think it's a
Milan or
bit
something like
harsh.
that. Well,
I think it's a bit harsh.
Yeah,
because if you think about last season, he was remarkably consistent. I think it was very consistent.
He was, but like if I'm just not entirely convinced that if because football is brutal, and I'm just not entirely convinced that he is 100% Silva's out and out. I want you for the future. I think he's amazing for now, and he's really, really good for now. In 2 years'
disagree
time,
with that.
well, you're allowed to. That's the whole point of what we're doing. But like, I think in 2 years' time, I'm not necessarily sure if he's going to be 100% what Silva wants. I don't know.
I don't think
before you go,
what
Jack,
we're doing is to disagree with each other, but I think the point is consider the way Fulham play, especially down the left hand side. It's custom built for someone like Anthony Robinson, who has that extreme speed, plays with a really tricky winger in Willian, which is again why we signed an extension and pay Willian a crazy amount of money for his age. I think he's exactly what Silva is looking for in a left back, and we exploit it constantly because he fits the mold perfectly. But I don't think that translates to a step up to a bigger side. And if I answered your question, Dad, of how much of what's my price, it's similar to Polina, where I don't think I would be happy selling him at any price unless we had a very good replacement in for him. So we could sell it and it's a similar issue to the Mitro situation
what does that cost you?
Ooh.
Well, he cost us 2 million, so I don't know what it cost us, but usually with someone like that, you'd have someone waiting in the wings like we've got with Castagna and Tete at the moment, where you feel like if we had to sell Kenny Tete, you've got Castagna to back you up. We don't have anything at left back. So that makes him priceless, really, at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if Tim Ream had a little bit more in the engine, Bassey's a left back backup, technically, and so is Castagna.
Agree.
You're good at centre back, though.
Yeah, I think it just they're fill-ins. It's like playing Bobby at right back again. Like he could do it, and it would be probably fine. But we're talking about taking the next step, and really, I think you need to.
I agree.
You need to get 40 to spend, 20 on a really good Bassey-esque player who maybe didn't have a move work out somewhere else, or it's hard to answer really. I think it's. He's a player who's evolved over the last couple of years, and he's kind of becoming priceless for us. I know he's not the perfect defender, but geez, when he's on, he is really on. And it's been great in these last few weeks to see him really take that next step.
I guess that's pure and simply my point. He's by no means the perfect left back Premier League footballer or elite level footballer. But for us, I think he works really, really well, and he's got some good things going with Willian, and he fits very well in our little system. So for me, like a Polina, because he's such a key player for us, I'd want a lot of money, and maybe a lot of money is probably more than most people to be prepared to pay. I'd want 50 million pounds for him, and he probably isn't going to get that unless someone, a drunken sailor, walks through the door.
I don't know. I think you actually could get 50 mil for him, because I don't think that's a crazy ask. I think the good thing about tailor making your left back position for a really speedy player actually works really, really well in our favor, because the interesting comparison between Polina and Robinson is I think there are a lot of players who can actually do what Robinson does at a pretty sufficient level that could fit in pretty quickly, because you're not short of pacey left backs in either the Championship or the Premier League who need starting time. Pauline is very, very different for me, because I reckon Pauline is probably top 3 defensive midfielders in the world. I mean, I can't really think of too many better. If he's not top 5, he'd be at least top 10 in my opinion.
Well, we were having this conversation as well, and in terms of tacklers, he's
nuts.
right at the top. And so the defensive work that he does in breaking up play and just getting the ball back, intimidating players. I there was a number of players, Saka included, who jump when they hear Polina coming and get out of the way because they know what's going to happen. And
it's really,
but you have to look at a play like Declan Rice, and he's a very, very good player, great 2-footed player. He can play those really deadly balls into attack to set up something quite exciting, and he's a very complete player, just by way of example.
Yeah.
And again, I think Polina is one of those perfect players for us, because I don't think he's the full, complete, genuine, elite level article, without being disrespectful to the man at all. I think he's an incredible player who's kind of perfect for what Fulham need. And he's just this destroyer in midfield. But I'm not sure, as Jack and I were discussing the other day, do Man City need someone like that in defensive midfield? Probably not.
Well, they've got Raul'y, who's probably the best in the world. So, yeah. That was actually a really, if we can talk about that for a minute, it's really, really interesting seeing a matchup between Rice and Polina, because, I mean, I feel that Rice had to be a lot silkier and less destructive than he would otherwise typically be, because Polina was bossing that midfield. He was bossing that midfield. And for the amount that Declan Rice went for, really, really interesting showcase when you put them against each other.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Polina played Rice off the park yesterday.
Me too.
Polina was obviously the better player, and Declan Rice is a class player. You could see it as well in some of his movement and some of his passing. He set up quite a few Arsenal chances, which they weren't able to actually put away. But if you're looking at just on on the game's performance, it was hands down Polina was far, far superior.
Sure.
And it does, at that point, you have to look at the costings for those two players and say Polina is making a case for being worth, in the same ballpark region of that 100 million mark.
Totally.
A point I did make to Dad, which is an interesting sidebar conversation that we'll probably end up having at some point about Polina. He's obviously touted to go to some of these big name clubs, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Bayern, all considering a move for him. I think even Newcastle have shown some interest now as well. The one consideration there is, Polina's strength is his tackling. He's not the greatest passer. He can score a goal, but really you buy Polina for the tackles. Now, when you're those top 6 sides and those, giants of world football that we talk about, you don't really need a player who makes those tackles. You often come out of games with 70% possession, and you are actually looking for players like a Declan Rice who can pass the ball, like a Casemiro who's got a range of passing, a Raul'y, a Gundogan, those kind of players who, yes, they have the defensive ability to shut stuff down, but really you want them creating as well and adding a little bit more going forward than just defensively. Really, if you want a great defensive player, you buy really good centre backs who dominate when the ball gets even close to them. So there is a conversation to be had around, does Palhinha's style of play actually suit a top 6 club? I know he's very impressive every time he plays against top 6 clubs, but maybe that's because he has to be. Whereas if you move to a
we
team
don't have
like
possession.
Arsenal, you move to a team like Arsenal, you don't have to be. You have 70% possession in most games, and really you need someone deep who can pass the ball around like Declan Rice did. And look, it's a tangent of a conversation, and it's probably one that we will eventually have when Palhinha does move on, hopefully at the end of the season and not in summer, or maybe never. We can dream. But look, I want to sort of get a bit of a final word on this game and just how big a result it was. We've got a pretty tough month ahead of us. If we look at, obviously not the game coming up against Rotherham, but we do have to play Chelsea. We got a couple of games against Liverpool. I think our easiest fixture is probably Everton, who are definitely not an easy beat at the moment.
Yeah.
How do you see this one affecting the squad in general, considering it's such a big victory, but there's so much more on the horizon for us at the moment?
Well, the one thing we haven't talked about is Alex Iwobi and how effective he was in the middle. And obviously January means losing both Iwobi and Bassi. And it's not just about the numbers of we lose 2, we play Liverpool, they've only lost 1. It's how important they are to us. And we've seen the effect that a couple of good key players can have on us in Raul and Willian being out. It can be very significant. So I'm not sure what the state of Tim Ream's fitness is. Let's hope he's back. Even if he is back, he's been out for a while. So
well, Diop's been coming on recently, so you'd expect that Diop will slot into that spot.
I don't love Diop at centre back on the left. Don't love him there. Obviously, he can defend and he's good in the air and he knows the players and he's completely integrated in the squad. So it's not a disaster, but it's probably as bad as Calvin Bassey on the right, and just not ideal. Can we live without Iwobi? Yeah, sure. If Pereira plays at his best, absolutely great. But Iwobi has proven himself to be an incredibly hard-working player, and he just injects such a lot of energy into our best performances. So that's a big miss for us, I think.
Yeah, look, I think going forward, I almost see this game as a bit of a showcase and a bit of a plea to potential other players who want to come to Fulham. Just because the seed is there for something so perfect, and if you're not getting the game time that you essentially want, and there's plenty of players out there who are top draw, top quality, who are just lost in the rotation. There is so much opportunity. So I really hope at least the project is tantalizing enough to get who we need and just flood us a little bit, so we just have so much more to build off of, because we're coming off of a really, really promising building point. It does kind of feel like a lot of the building blocks are there for an equally as special season as we had last season, even though last season was a bit of a marvel. So I'm really, really optimistic about everything at the moment, which is, obvious after a win like this. I really hope the wind stays in our sails. But again, it's that peppered with that little bit of being a Fulham fan of just, I have no idea what next week brings, and it's against Chelsea as well. If we get a result against Arsenal and Chelsea in a 2-week period, we're going to be on cloud 9, and we're going to have some serious energy for whatever comes next. I just really hope I see it.
I think it's a very good point that you make about the fact if you think of transfer window about to open, um, you'd think that the key players that we're really trying to get over the line would be watching pretty closely. And what a
Oh
great
yeah,
result for them to actually begin to believe if there was any doubt about what this team could be and what they could be part of. That's a very, very good late advertising campaign. Those elections where you're kind of 48% and everyone's polling against you, and then you have a great speech or someone picks up and kisses a baby, and
yeah.
then you win.
Well, Silva, I think Silva as a
Even more,
manager has a
you
lot
need
of
a
pull.
scandal from the opposition, which is exactly what Chelsea are giving us at the moment.
Yeah, so true, so true. Oh, yeah. Anyway,
Um, look, let's have a quick look at some stats as we round this one out. Fulham holding 40% possession to Arsenal 60. Doesn't tell the full story, I don't think, because I believe at halftime it was 50 all, and I think that skyrocketed at the end as we sat back and defended fairly comfortably. Fulham 15 shots to Arsenal's 13, 4 on target to Arsenal's 3. Fulham with 412 passes to Arsenal's 637, 5 corners to 4 for Fulham, and 11 fouls to Arsenal's 10. A quick look at the table. Fulham sitting in 13th place with 24 points. Unfortunately, our goal difference is back down to -7, despite being 0 a few weeks ago, which is a bit disappointing. But look, there's a healthy gap to Luton now, who are in 18th place. We are 9 points clear of the drop zone. And look, I think there's reason to be positive when you look at this. Ahead of us at the moment, just 4 points ahead of us, we have Chelsea. 5 points ahead of us, Newcastle. The top half is well within reach, and a couple of good results could really see us actually jump up there. If you look at our next league fixtures, we've got to play Chelsea, Everton, Burnley, Bournemouth. I'd be hoping for bounce backs against Burnley and Bournemouth at the start of February. I think Everton is a tough game, but we've proven already that we can beat Everton this season. And Chelsea, in their current form, look, that really should be a game that we're targeting as a winnable game, even though it is at Stamford Bridge. But there's a potential there to pick up, 9 points from those 4 games. I'd be crossing my fingers and hoping we can get something out of those, minimum 6 or 7 points. And that takes us to that 30-point mark with 24 games gone. Really means you kind of just have to limp forward and get another couple of wins before the end of the season to effectively be safe. But our next actual fixture is against Rotherham in the FA Cup. This game's a Friday night game, Friday the 5th of January, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. It's 3:30 for us on the west coast of Australia, 6:30 on the east coast. It's an 11:30 a.m. kickoff Pacific time and 2:30 p.m. kickoff Eastern time in the US. That's on a Friday for the US, on a Saturday for Australia. Guys, Rotherham really struggling at the moment, sitting bottom of the championship. Their recent results haven't actually been terrible. They lost a couple of games due to having red cards. They've picked up draws against Blackburn, who are doing well. Picked up a draw against Sunderland. They beat Middlesbrough. They're not terrible, but I mean, they're bottom of the championship. We should be expecting to beat them quite comfortably. Do you expect to see a lot of rotation for this game, considering this is a Rotherham team who Fulham haven't lost to since 1992? So it's been 32 years now since Fulham lost to Rotherham. And the last few times we've played them, we beat them comfortably. We're obviously on a completely different plane. How many changes do you expect? Do you think we'll see youth players? Do you think it's just going to be squad players and rotation? What are we thinking?
Well, I think Silva likes a cup run. I think he fancies his chances. We're always whinging about how awful our draws normally are. This is a great draw. We should be making absolutely sure of it. So I wouldn't be putting the kids out. And I'd probably start with a fairly decent team, try to get a couple of goals ahead, maybe 2 or 3 goals ahead, and look to make significant changes, certainly in the middle of the park and up front. for the second half without completely, giving them a chance at the back.
I actually reckon Dad's a little bit more on the money there. I reckon Silva doesn't play, and I think we'll actually be surprised at how seriously he'll probably take a game against Rotherham. Oh, sorry, I can't speak. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I think he'll take that very, very seriously, and he'll put out maybe one or two changes. But otherwise, I think he'll do a pretty full squad, and then just probably do some youth rotation, and probably put Jimenez in the best position to score as many goals as he can, just to build up his confidence, and then probably do some significant changes at halftime, just to see if either Muniz can get a goal or Vinicius can get a goal, depending on how he's feeling.
I can see Willian rested, Castagna rested, give Kenny a run. I can see Robinson rested. Obviously, Leno's going to be rested. And maybe Diop comes in. And if what's the state of Ream? This would be a great opportunity for Tim Ream to play. If he's
getting closer, Tim Ream and Adama Traore. I disagree. I actually think Fulham are going to make 11 changes. But I mean, the only people for me who probably hold their spot, maybe Decordova-Reid and maybe Tom Cairney. I think we should see Defugerols play. I think we'll see Ballatore start, Rodak start. Diop will probably start. Like you say, Castagna should get a rest. Polina almost certainly won't play. I wouldn't have thought you play Jimenez. Why play him at the moment? There's too many big games coming up, and it's too big a risk. We play this game on the 5th. We then have to play Liverpool. I think it's the 10th we play them, so 5 days later. We've got Chelsea on the 13th. We've got a second leg against Liverpool. I don't 100% know the rules for sure, but imagine if Jimenez gets a red card and ends up being suspended for our League Cup games or for our games against Chelsea, Bournemouth and Burnley again. Like it just feels
happen.
like, or Polina, or you don't want these guys picking up silly yellow cards or anything like that could put them in any potential risk, or a little niggle like you saw with Diop's challenge where it looked very innocuous. I don't think anything really happened, but it ended up being him out for 2 months. And imagine if you play Rotherham in the FA Cup third round and you pick up a stupid injury that, especially with Bassi and Iwobi about to go off to AFCON as well, like it's the last thing you want is to potentially have a slip up. And I genuinely believe if we fully rotate this squad and play our backup players, they should be good enough to beat Rotherham. And you you keep players like Jimenez and Polina and Wilson on the bench so that they can come on and influence the game if we do go down to try and get a win. Because, looking at the draw as well, it's a good draw for Fulham. You look at Crystal Palace drew Everton, Tottenham drew Burnley, Brentford drew Wolves. Who else have we got? Arsenal drew Liverpool. So you're instantly having
it's an amazing
5 Premier League
it's
teams
incredible.
knocked out. And there's a lot of draws where teams in the Championship have drawn teams in League 2, teams in the Championship drawing teams in League 3, League 2 teams playing each other. Like, there's the potential to get a nice, comfortable draw all the way through to the latter stages of the FA Cup. But I think you have to look at the present and look at the fact that we've got some really important games coming up in the next 2 weeks or so. And it would just be such a shame to imagine if we lost our opportunity to get to a League Cup final because we got an injury against Rotherham. It would be heartbreaking. So I just feel like you fully rotate and you actually protect those guys to make sure that we get the best possible chance at Liverpool, and you give them more of a break as well. I think Liverpool have they play on the 7th of January, so we've got 2 extra days rest ahead of them. it feels like an opportunity to rotate as much as possible. These are the few times in the season where you get those guys off the bench, and some of the under 21s who've been playing really well, and it also could be a final opportunity for some of these guys to actually prove their worth. We talk about Vinny having some offers coming in, Muniz potentially being a candidate to go out on loan somewhere. It might be the chance for them to go out and say, this is the reason you should keep me around. And it might be a chance for Silva to look at them and go, this is the reason you're off. So it does feel like a time to rotate as much as possible without throwing the game away. I don't think there's a chance that we'll put out a silly 11 that will lose this one. But for me, I'd like to see rotation and some focus on the more important games coming up.
Does Luke Harris get a start?
Oh,
does he ever? I'd like to see him start, but I guess when you consider the rotation, he probably should. We're losing Alex Iwobi, and so Pereira becomes that linchpin at attacking midfield. The next person in queue there is probably usually Tom Cairney or Wilson or Willian, but they should all probably be rested too. So it does feel like this is an opportunity for a Luke Harris, or even potentially some of the other under-21s. Dibley Diaz, I'm not sure if he's fully recovered from his injury yet. But, there's some good young players who are performing really well for the under-21s. Maybe it's time to give them a bit of a chance and see what they can do. And if they prove themselves, then Silva can go, you know what, we don't need Vinny and Muniz here at the moment. Let's shift them on, and we can rely on our youth players and potentially rely on other players we're bringing in the transfer window too. There's a lot to this. I don't think it's as simple as just rotating the team and seeing if you get a win. There's actually a lot more going on behind the scenes. I think that could be quite important for the transfer window and for the rest of our season.
No, I think you're on the money. Yeah.
So I mean, we'll see how that goes. It's I wouldn't call it a big game for us. I think the League Cup, the fact that we've got to the League Cup semi is great. I think we don't want to stretch ourselves too thin almost and get to another semi-final. That would be ridiculous. But it's definitely an opportunity to try something different, and I'm fairly positive going into this game that we should be able to get a result and overcome a Rotherham side who, they will also be thinking to themselves, we need to concentrate on the league because they are currently how many points adrift? Like almost 10 points adrift, more than halfway through the season of safety. So they've got their thoughts elsewhere at the moment as well, and they wouldn't want to lose any key players in this game. Guys, before we do wrap up, there's one other bit of business to touch on. Some contract extensions which happened over the last couple of days. Tim Ream and Tom Cairney both having their contracts extended. This sees both of them come into their 10th year at Fulham by the time their contract's up. I guess just a quick word on both of them. We've seen a resurgence in the last few years. Tim Ream last season, Tom Cairney this season. Just how important are these two guys to Fulham over the last 10 years?
Hard to
quantify.
Difficult to quantify. I think I don't think Tom Cairney is loved just because he's a nice guy and he's got a $1 million smile. He's been not only a wonderful servant, he's a very, very, very useful player, and he's a great player to watch. And after all, that is why people support football teams, because they want to watch something that's very entertaining. He's a very entertaining player. Tim Ream's something a bit different. I think Tim Ream is a very solid, committed, he's a guy you go over the top with. And he's just your stalwart, absolute brick of a defender. And both of these guys have been absolutely incredible in the twilight of their career, not just holding their own, but actually showing us something a little different when people probably thought they were beyond it. So I'm delighted. And in the light of the conversation we had about Bobby Decker over Reed, I think it bodes well for how Silva is thinking about some of these more senior players going forward. I'm very happy, not just from a sentimental perspective. I'm very happy that these guys are staying as part of the group because they're really really important. And look at Kenny, look at what he's done. Not just dug us out of a problem. He's actually provided something really special this season, as Tim Ream did last season. And obviously, Tim Ream had that injury at the end of last season, and he's struggling a little bit with the body this year. But I think he's still got it in him. He's certainly got it in him to be a very, very able backup. And if he's not required to play every week, he can utterly do a job for us.
I'm actually really this is one of those moments where I'm just really happy and really proud to be a Fulham fan, because I really recently saw a video clip of Frank Lampard talking about how Chelsea, after years and years and years of service, basically said that he was done with a week period to emotionally prepare for that, and then he was essentially out. And then a similar thing happened with people like Beckham, and it's quite a well documented story where players just aren't necessarily cared about by teams that they've given a lot to, and it's just really nice to know that we don't really appear to be one of those clubs. You could even almost argue, even to a fault, we hang on to our players a little bit too much longer just for like sentimentality. But you know what? I'd rather be that, and I'd rather give both Tom Cairney and Tim Ream the time to like retire when they want to retire. I mean, honestly, Tim Ream has very famously said, I will retire when they kick me out. And I love that about him. And if we're kicking a 58-year-old Tim Ream out, then that's absolutely fine with me. I love both these guys. I think they've done so well. And they've aged into this squad so beautifully. And it's not a clinging on in a kind of like sad way to like the past. It's appreciating the present and appreciating that these guys will always have something to offer Fulham. And I think that's really, really lovely. And it makes me very, very proud of my club.
Yeah, well said, Samuel.
Yeah, look, I love sentimentality, but at the same time, and it might be years of playing Football Manager and happily culling players at the end of a season.
Oh, I know it too well.
But it's this feels different purely because Tim Ream and Tom Cairney, yes, there is sentimentality there. And look, at times over the last 3 years, maybe 4 years, there have been moments for both of these players when I've said, or at least thought, time's up, and it's not working. I love you guys, but we just need to move on. What I can say is these two have constantly and over again just proved us wrong. Tim Ream last season was arguably our player of the season. Tom Cairney this season is a man reborn, and look, it's a testament to both of them, the fact that they've played 300 games at the club. There's not many teams around, especially in the Premier League, especially mid-table in the Premier League, who have players who have played two players, both regularly starting for them, who have played 300 plus games together. I just, while you guys are talking, had a quick look at the season when Tim Ream and Tom Cairney joined Fulham back in 2015-16 season. They both joined at the start of the season. And, that was the season that Fulham finished 20th in the Championship. We were 10 points off getting relegated down to League One that season. Like, these two guys have been with us through thick and thin and seen promotions and relegations. They've seen multiple different managers. If you think about the fact that they were both signed by Kit Simons maybe not that season actually. Oh no, it was Kit Simons signed them. It was that season we had Kit Simons, Peter Grant, Stuart Gray, and Slavisa as manager.
And I'm pretty sure all of them have told Tim Ream they don't want him anymore, and he's proved every single one of them wrong.
Well, I remember Tim Ream saying in an interview, when Slavisa took over at the end of 2015, and Tim Ream had only just been signed from Bolton, and Slavisa told him that he's not good enough, but he knuckled down and just kept working and working and working, and prove them wrong. And I think it can be said that both of these players have consistently done that and consistently proved us wrong. Um, and look, they're huge personalities behind closed doors. Both of them wear the captain's armband when they take to the field. It's just it it feels good. Firstly, to know that these guys have been um, treated well and getting their contracts extended. And I think also it's not just the sentimentality of it; it's the fact that they're two very good squad players, and we're tying down good squad players to, admittedly, just single year contracts. But at least we're forward planning and saying we want Tim Ream and Tom Kearney at Fulham next season too. So it's a big call. Happens just before the transfer window, and I'm just so pleased about it. They both deserve it hugely. And look, I'm looking forward to their testimonial games. You get a testimonial after 10 years. Love to see the Tom Kearney All Stars versus the Tim Ream All Stars and get some Fulham players from the last sort of 20 years to come back and play at Craven Cottage. I think that would be an outstanding way to celebrate both of these players and their importance to the club. And look, it's, there are two captains over the last 6 or 7 years, I think it's been, since they've both been given the armband, and it's just a good feeling moment, especially off the back of the Arsenal win. A really nice piece of news to start off 2024.
Yeah.
One final thing before we close it out. Fulham women's team have their first game back. They'll be playing in the I hate pronouncing the name of this, the London and South East Regional Women's League Cup. They're playing against the Dulwich Hamlet Reserves. That game's taking place at Motspur Park on the 7th of January. It's 2:30 p.m. kickoff. So please do get down and support them. It's a good way for the girls to get back into it. Obviously, having the break over winter, over Christmas. It's a good time to actually come back and, stretch the legs a little bit, get a game against a reserves team in a cup, and hopefully get a little bit of that cohesion back after a bit of a break. We always know, we saw it especially after the World Cup break last year, how it can really disrupt a good flow, which the Fulham women's team have had over the last few weeks. The week after, they'll be playing against Aylesford away from home. So it's a good way to get back into it with a cup game against Dulwich Reserves. So, look, guys, I think at that point we can definitely wrap it up. We've covered a superb result. It was Raul'y good.
Jesus, that's bad.
Thank you.
Bad, man.
Thank you. As Dad said beforehand, he's not judging because I'll tell him to make one up as well, and absolute hassle. But before we do close out, I just had a question come in on the live stream, and from Johnny Papp. We did discuss this in the last podcast as well, actually. Fabio Carvalho to be loaned in. Quick one-word answers from both of you. Would you take Carvalho? Yes or no?
I'd take him on a loan as long as there was an option to buy, not a straight loan.
Sammy?
Yeah, loan with option to buy. If you want to hear my thoughts on this, go back to our previous podcast on the That's So Craven Fulham podcast.
Good stuff, Sammy. I agree. I'd take him on a loan. I'm not that fussed about the option to buy, but a loan as long as he doesn't expect to be starting every single game. But anyway, guys,
you said you take him on a loan as long as you didn't have to pay his wages. Never going to happen.
Yeah, well then it's not going to happen. Fine with me. Guys, I think we can definitely wrap it up there. Thank you again for joining me tonight. Happy New Year to everyone who's listening, especially you guys as well. But a big thank you to all following along on the live stream and people who consistently listen. 2023 was a huge year for That's So Craven. We're hoping 2024 will be even bigger as well. So thank you for your continued support. Sammy, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't already done that. I'm gonna start pushing that a little bit more. And yeah, like it's the response we get is incredible. We appreciate it endlessly. Don't ever think that we don't. Bring on the new year. I have a weird thing with numbers, so you guys are gonna have to carry me through. I'm not huge on the number 24, but you guys will make it better. You always do. Thanks for having us.
I actually thought you were going to say something. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I actually thought when you said like, share, I thought you were going to say something weird like, share, believe.
And that's why you listen to the That's So Craven podcast, because you never know what Sam's going to say. It just keep you on your toes.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jack.
Something weird like that. Yeah, thank you for joining.
It's been fun. It's been good, and happy to talk about such exciting and really, proud things like the result we had a couple of days ago.
And share.
Absolutely, it's good to be back. So thank you again, everyone, and until next time, come on.